Hi, folks. You're with Tass today, your pushback channel, Tassus today, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about how we can ascertain the benefits, if any, of mass migration. Now, there's a lot of propagandists, armies of propagandists, whether in our academia, media, think tanks, even our body politic, our political class, the commentariat that say mass migration is a wonderful thing. But can anyone tell you how? How does it benefit us? What benefit does it bring? Now, there's some arguments to say, well, if we don't do it, things will be worse. There's that, but that's a very negative one. I'll come back to that in a minute. But I haven't found anyone who's able to. They say that we have to do it, and if you don't like it, you're a Nazi. There are those, but no one can say, well, here are the benefits they bring. This mass migration of illiterate brown and black peasants from the third world brings many benefits. Okay, what are these benefits? What are these benefits? Tell me what these benefits are. Tell me what these benefits are. And if you can demonstrate clearly that there are benefits, then I can be persuaded. I'm open-minded about this. I've traveled the world a million times over doing business in every continent with black people, brown people, every different type of people. So I'm very open-minded on this. But tell me how. I want to be convinced because I can't see it. I can't see what the benefit is. Maybe there is a benefit, but I can't see what it is. Now, when you look at people trying to justify it, they often, if say they're interviewed on TV or something like that, they're soft interviewed. They don't get the tough questions. And for example, the interviewer could start off, well, I've noticed here that there have been, 150 murders in the last 12 months, and 131 of those have been committed by recent migrants or their families. Is this the sort of benefit that you want to bring to our shores, Mr. Prime Minister or President or something? Instead they go very soft on the interviews, and they let the politician or whoever the commentator might be say, well, look at all the food we get. Such a variety in food. Oh, isn't that wonderful? The culture, the food, the diversity. But they don't sort of tell us about what these benefits are. Now, I don't think there are benefits. There's a very small number of migrants that do fit in, want to become part of the community they're arriving in. They do want to live here. They just want to come here for employment. They want to live here in the West End, and they want to integrate, and they want their children to be as Western as can be. So now, that's something that I've got no problem with that. But the number of people that arrive in the mass migration that actually have that is a very small number. It's not even 5% of the total. So if you look at, say, Britain with 600,000 net migration last year, there's probably only 30,000, give or take, that actually are desirable migrants. They have skills, they have ability, they can fit right in. Maybe they've got skills in areas of genuine skill shortage, and they can come, they can fit in, they've probably come with assets enough to maybe buy a house or at least get started, and take a stake in society, and with local property, children being born in the country and so on. But again, that number is very small, and there have been various papers done that are well hidden by the media and the body politic. In Australia, there was one that disappeared into the memory hole without notice, that said of the I'm going off the top of my head now, but out of 200,000, I think in that particular year, that they were looking at, 200,000 migrants came in, and less than 10,000 were viable migrants. Less than 10,000 were viable. So that's about the number that you can look at. 5% is a generous thing, certainly of the sort of migrants that are coming. Now, there are people that are doing very well in India, for example. Why would they go to another country? They're doing very nicely, thank you, where they are. So why would they want to move? There are those that have come from very corrupt countries where there's a possibility that the government will go after them on some bullshit made up charge, so they have to have bolt hole properties around the world. But look, the amount of skilled migrants on the move, migrants that fit in, that want to fit in, that bring real skills to the table, is a very small number. So when we look at, say, Britain taking in 600,000 migrants, in net terms at least, or alleged net terms, I'd say the government's numbers are probably, they've downgraded them or used different categories and classifications to try and reduce the number, so it's less formidable when it hits the media. But that means something like, out of the 600,000, about 570,000 people that they've got no skills, they bring nothing to the table. Now, when you bring that many people with no skills, no capabilities, nothing into a country, I can't see what benefit delivers. The 5% or the 30,000, less than 5% of 600,000, then I get, okay, fine, I've got no problem with that. 30,000 people want to come to Britain each year, and they've got real skills. They want to integrate, make Britain their home, and renounce their citizenship of other, all that sort of stuff. I've got no problem with that. Same here in Australia. Now, in terms of alleged refugees, given that the bar now is set so low for what constitutes a refugee, we're looking at people that are coming to the West that aren't a refugee in any sort of known definition of the term. They're just part of this mass people movement that the United Nations and the NGOs and the globalists are orchestrating, none of which is organic, by the way. These people are being agitators go around all the camps and everywhere. NGO, UN agitators go around the camps. They stir these people up and say, come to the West and get free everything. Then they provide this massive logistical machine to move them around and to help them and to feed them. These alleged refugees that are hanging around in the camps in Calais waiting to get an opportunity to go to Britain, for example. How do you think they manage to survive for the 12 to 18 months, longer sometimes, that they're there? Where's the food come from? Where are all these new clothes they get? Where's all the water and the sanitation? Who pays for all the portable toilets that are on site and all this sort of thing? That's all paid for by NGOs and various alleged charities that are given tax-exempt status that are really just part of the international people moving infrastructure. These people would never leave their village in the middle of fucking nowhere in Africa to come to the West if they weren't given all this assistance. Remember, they're fed, clothed, and watered and transported thousands upon thousands of miles to get they would never have undertaken a journey like that without a lot of encouragement, a lot of promise of shitloads of free stuff and so on. So these are the people that are not coming to contribute, they're coming to take, not to give, but to take. So now there are other arguments that are put forward to say, well, look, these people, if you want to take out food, like a fast food sector in the first world economies, if you want that, you have to have peasants coming to work. If you want street sweepers, if you want toilet cleaners, you have to have these people coming to do it, because the local people don't want to do it. Well, let's look at self-inflicted wounds here. The cost of real estate is now three times more expensive than it was in 1970, or even before the mass migration thing began to sort of uptick. Real estate is now which includes rent, three times more expensive than it was. So the purchasing power of the paycheck is diminished massively over the years. Now, in Australia, something like 2% of the population can afford to live from their own income. It doesn't include inheritance or something. 2%. Only 2% of jobs pay enough money to live a middle-class lifestyle in Australia today, in a big city. So this is an insane sort of turnaround, because it was 75% 50 years ago could live a middle-class lifestyle. Now it's 2%. So the cost of real estate having gone up, well, now people can't afford to do those floor sweeping jobs or those takeout food store jobs because the cost of living has increased so measurably. Why don't you address the cost of living? Well, why have you allowed real estate to become the plaything of international investors? Why do you allow big property magnates to have such high levels of tax deductibility and tax breaks by buying up swathes of property? Why do you allow the big finance companies like BlackRock to own gazillions of properties, entire towns, and get huge tax breaks? Because why do you allow that? This is all contributing to a massive cost of living increase, and you have to pay to put a roof over your head. You can't be in a situation where you say consuming consumer goods like televisions or something like that, where you can decide that you're not going to upgrade your television, or you're not going to buy a television or something like, you can't make those decisions with accommodation. You have to have a roof over your head, and therefore it's an inescapable expense. It's not a discretionary expense, accommodation. So because the prices have gone up to such an extent, people can't afford to do those jobs. So the only way that they can rather than pay extra money or more money for those jobs, which the economists argue, well, if you've got to pay a market rate in a capitalist market economy, by the way, if you've got to pay a market rate, then that sector won't exist, or won't exist as we understand it today. I think it would exist. I think it would just take a different form. There may be you go into a supermarket and they've got the pizza ovens in the supermarket, so it may be folded into another business, so that the overall cash flow and cross sort of subsidising between departments and sections could work an economy of scale there. But in terms of the fast food outlets and the like, that whole industry will disappear if we have to pay market rates. The whole manicuring and pedicuring, beauty industry, that will all disappear if we have to pay market rates. The only thing we can do is bring third world peasants in to do this work. It's the only way we can keep that sector of the economy alive. Well, that means you put that sort of sector of the economy on life support. So instead of allowing market rates to adjust and then to bring about the changes in how that industry functions and how it delivers its goods and services, instead of doing that, they keep that industry on artificial life support and bring in peasants to work in it. Now, I've seen these peasants. We were renting an apartment for a while in an inner city area, and we were staggered at how many Indians and Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, they'll live like 20 to a 2-bedroom apartment, or Chinese, and it's mattresses on the floor and bunk beds and so on. They sleep in shifts and relays. And so, 20 people to a 2-bedroom apartment is no big deal. They can fit more in if they do the shifts. So these people come in. Now, it's meant to be illegal to have that many people living in an apartment, but because they pay a higher rent, because there are 20 workers to pool the rent now they may be making shit money. They may be only making half the average wage, or less than the minimum wage. But because there are 20 of them with all their money pooled, they're able to actually, the owner of the property can stiff them for more rent. Or it's used as a tax dodge by the owners, the offshore overseas owners of the takeout food shop that are bringing these peasants in, using labour hire scams and so on to do it, bringing the peasants in and then deducting from their pay accommodation and food and other things, which means no one's paying any tax. The whole operation runs without tax. Now, that rather defeats the purpose of having those businesses where none of the workers and none of the owners pay a nickel in tax, because it's all being written off through various scams and other means. What benefit does that deliver to the community? None. Then we look at the amount of people coming. Neighbourhoods can change incredibly quickly once people move in. I remember nice sort of almost village enclaves within Sydney that now are just shitholes, absolute shitholes. They've just been taken over by these. A lot of the people coming in. I mean, you look at the sophisticated buyers. The rich Communist Party generals and so on that buy shitloads of property. You watch them going around. They're reasonably sophisticated people. There's not that many of them, but they'll buy 100 properties in an area, and then they'll bring out the peasants from rural China to go and stay there to sort of look at the maintain the properties or keep them there. And those are the people that work as the dishwashers in the Chinese restaurants. So there's round robin scams with property ownership. Labour hire scams, then delivering workers to cheap minimum wage workers, less than minimum wage, to to the various industries that are controlled by the Chinese and whatever. The other thing too about the mass migration is when these groups come, they take over entire suburbs. You wonder how it's even possible, but they take over entire suburbs. There are entire suburbs of Sydney where you won't see a single white person. They're all Indians, or they're all Chinese, or they're all whatever. Pakistanis and so on. I mean, how is that even possible? How do they get all these white people, everyone, to move out? But anyway, they take over the area, and these people only do business with each other. They keep every penny that they possibly can amongst their own diaspora. So they're not benefiting the wider community, far from it. And the areas, not always, the areas mostly go to shit. And that they, it turns into like a ghetto. Again, some of these little villages that are like village enclaves in the wider city, they were sort of pretty little places, and now they're just fucked. So again, I can't see that they're dirty, and I just can't see the benefit of it. Maybe there is a benefit, but not one that I can see, and not one that anyone can explain. You go to shops and you want to get assistance, yet you can't because the people don't speak English. Fortunately, I'm multilingual, so in the case of, say, Mandarin Chinese, I can typically get by. But I don't speak any of the Indian dialects, for example, or Pakistani or anything like that. So I struggle to find benefit anywhere. The benefits that people say, for example, the advocates for mass migration say, well, look, we can keep this take-out food industry alive. I don't think that's a benefit. It's artificially kept on life support. It generates almost no tax income, and it benefits really offshore Indian and Chinese investors, and they benefit from artificially cheap labour and tax avoidance. So they're not really delivering anything that I can tell that's of worth. There's a lot of new building in areas, in forests and great green belts are just being reclassified now, and there are apartments going in. There's forests of apartments now where there used to be, quite pretty staid, almost sleepy suburbs, and they're just forests of apartments with, it looks like again, barely a white face in sight, and throngs of people. You can go in certain sections of Sydney now where, on the train, for example. I don't take the train that often, and for the most part, I'm the only white person in the fucking carriage. No one's speaking English; they're all speaking another language. Does that improve my quality of life? I guess I don't care, because I'm used to being the only white person. Through all the business traveling I've done, I'm used to being the only white person in the restaurant or the hotel foyer or the whatever on the train or in the shop and so on. So I'm used to that, but it doesn't improve my quality of life. If I want to experience another culture or another language, I'm happy to travel to do it. But in my own country, I want to be surrounded by people who primarily at least look like me and speak my language. And I'm not against someone else if they're fitting in and they're culturally integrating and all that sort of stuff. I don't mind. I am open-minded on that. But again, only a very small number of people that come here. What's being stuffed into the West is illiterate, low IQ, brown, black peasants. That's what we're getting. That's what's being pushed on us without our consent. So I can't see any of this improves my quality of life. Does it improve my standard of living? Does it increase the purchasing power of my paycheck? Does it mean I'm more? I've got better access to income generating activity, whether it be jobs or business opportunities or more clients or this sort of thing. Then it doesn't. There's actually a reduction in that, as I see it overall, or certainly a non-expansion. Are they paying taxes that it will somehow benefit them? Well, no, I don't see that. I've been, people I know and relatives who say are in nursing homes where all the staff, like Filipino type thing, where they kind of speak a sort of English, and they're but they spend more time on their mobile phones texting their friends and relatives in the Philippines, trying to scan ways of getting their third cousins to come out to Australia and bypass immigration requirements and so on and so forth. So no, I can't find a single way, and maybe someone in the comments can show me. I can't find a single way that mass migration benefits me. Now I know people that do, like property developers or people who have large real estate holdings, and their rents, they're making a shitload of money out of rents. Those people benefit, but they're a tiny proportion of the population. Otherwise, I can't see any benefit being delivered. Where you get a lot of people that don't speak English in a classroom, then at school, the whole thing has to slow down to cater for the other kids. So the white kids are really ignored on the basis, well, we got to slow things down for the recent immigrants and so on. So I'd love to know what the benefit is, but I can't see it. I think my quality of life has declined. I think the environment is under more pressure. I'm paying more for everything, whether it be energy or accommodation or food, or I'm paying more. It's harder to get services. I went into just medical services, taking an elderly and infirm relative around to get medical services. It's a shit fight. Either the doctor doesn't speak English, or the woman on the front desk doesn't speak English. Both of them don't speak English, or the doctor is getting caught up with patients that don't speak English, and it's taking hours. So you're waiting an hour plus in the queue for an appointment that you had to make. Whereas someone who doesn't speak English can come in and say they've got a medical emergency, and they immediately go to the front of the queue. You, the white person, the white supremacist, the advantaged, privileged person, you have to wait now because of that, and so on. So I can't see a single way that mass migration benefits me or anyone other than the already wealthy, the big banks, for example. I just don't see it. But again, I'm open-minded. Someone please explain it to me. You've been Tassus today. You're a pushback channel. Thank you for listening.